A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I ask that you please do subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Dstv Premiership encounter between Mamelodi Sundowns versus Swallows this upcoming weekend. So, without wasting any time then, we will head into it as Mamelodi Sundowns do come up against Swallows. So, Mamelodi Sundowns have had quite the impressive start and record within the Dstv Premiership. We're now starting to see them pick up form, we're starting to see them pick up the momentum, and we're starting to see them hit that full swing with regards to the style of play that they love to institute. And they've been doing really well. They've kept so many clean sheets, and they're also starting to score, the goals by the bucket load. So Mamelodi Sundowns coming into this one doing very, very well within the Dstv Premiership. And then when we have a look at Swallows have struggled in the past couple of games. They haven't really been able to inspire that confidence. They lack that final third penetration. They're also not scoring goals. They're not creating too many clear-cut chances, so they are struggling with regards to that, and they've had a very slow start to the season, which has seen them place Mr. Brandon Truter on special leave, so it's something that remains to be seen with regards to his return to Swallows. Does he return or does he not, or what happens? So we do know that Simo Dladla is currently in charge of the Dube Birds, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he manages his second Dstv Premiership encounter. Coming into this one, Swallows did draw their last encounter against Cape Town City in the Dstv Premiership at home, and then Mamelodi Sundowns won 2-0 away at Orlando Pirates. But let's get then into the tactical preview of this encounter. So, the blue team then will represent Mamelodi Sundowns, and then the red team will represent Swallows. So, with regards then to Mamelodi Sundowns, they're now starting to find consistency with regards to their lineup, and I think they've got their most consistent lineup, and they've got their best lineup, in my opinion, And when you look at this lineup, well, the core of it, I think, is superb. And what I love about their lineup is that if you retain the core of the really important players, then you can make a few changes here and there. You can add players. That's what they have been doing, but they've gone with a very solid base and a very solid foundation, which is absolutely paramount when you're looking to build that consistency, and you're looking to obviously defend your Dstv Premiership title. So when we have a look at Mamelodi Sundowns, then in goals, they've gone with it's been Onyango. So Onyango will most likely start in goals, unless if anything happens. Yes, of course. This is subject to change if maybe people pick up injuries during the week or just before the game, or the coaches decide otherwise. Otherwise, we're going with the lineup that they started with against Orlando Pirates. So against Orlando Pirates, Onyango started in goals. Right side at centre half, they went with Rushin Duruk. You had Rivaldo Kutsia in there, who when they are in build-up phase, he'd often drop in between the two centre halves, and then he collects and he looks to build up play from deep, as he is the deep laying playmaker for the Sundowns team. As the left-sided centre half, they got Lebusa, who has come back, and he's been quite impressive ever since his return, and he's done really well partnering Rushin Duruk, and they've managed to keep a couple of clean sheets. And going into the middle then, You've got Jali and you've got Themba Zwane, and they've been doing really well in the heart of midfield, especially Jali, who picked up a Man of the Match award in the previous encounter against Orlando Pirates at the Orlando Stadium. I thought he bossed things in that game, and he really controlled the game, you know. And what's very nice about Jali in this position is that he offers so much experience, so much guile, and he also brings in that leadership perspective, you know. He's also a very brave player who's not afraid to put his foot on the ball and make things happen. To a certain degree, I feel like it really helps Rivaldo Coetzee in the sense that they really complement each other very well, you know. And what he does then for Rivaldo Coetzee is that he allows him then to institute that beautiful deep laying playmaking football that Rivaldo Coetzee loves to institute, where he gets his foot on the ball and he plays. And then it also complements Themba Zwane, because Themba Zwane then can always look to work in these spaces. Sometimes you will see him drifting into vertical zone 1 on the left hand side, then look to come into the half space, you know. So with the solid base of a Rivaldo Coetzee and a Jali in midfield, it really helps a player like Themba Zwane do really well as a number 10. And I've always felt that this is Themba Zwane's best position, you know, playing as a 10, you know, coming from deep and then looking to assist a 3, as opposed to him starting in a front 3 and then always having to drop. And then what that would do then, it would give Mamelodi Sundowns a numerical disadvantage when it comes to the final third at times, because of how Themba Zwane, naturally so, being a ball player and intrinsically being a number 10, he always likes to come deep and then look to penetrate into incision phase. But when you start him deep and you've got a 3, then he's able to create for these 3 up front, you know, which then gives Mamelodi Sundowns that numerical advantage sometimes whenever we have a look at how they square up against the defensive opposition. So they've been very good in the heart of midfield for Mamelodi Sundowns. They complement each other very well. And I think this is a very complete midfield for Mamelodi Sundowns. And then when we have a look at the right side, we started with Grant Kekana. And then on the left-hand side, started with Lila K. So I've been very impressed with Lila K and with regards to how well he's doing. You know, this is a player who keeps getting better by the game, you know, and so far he's picked up 3 assists and also helped this defense to keep 5 clean sheets. So they're doing really, really well as a unit and as individuals as well, especially Lila K, you know. For a player to have 3 assists after 5 games within the league, that's very impressive numbers, you know. It shows you how well he does down vertical zone 1, you know, especially when he progresses into consolidation phase and then when he gets into the final third. He's a player that knows how to make the right decisions. He knows which type of balls to play, and whenever he is out wide, what I love about him and the duality that comes with his technical ability is that he can play those crosses. He can play deep crosses, which is what he did for Shalulile's goal, where Shalulile popped up at the back post and then he finished, you know. So he can play those deep crosses, but he can also then venture forward and find himself in that space and also play that cross where he's able then to either cut it back for the on-running midfielders, or he's able to hang it far post, or he's able to hit the penalty spot, or he's always able to recycle from here or look to play in, or sometimes even look to come in himself, you know. And whenever the game does progress and develop, because of his technical ability, you know, he's a player that sometimes you'll see him popping up into vertical zone 2 in that half space, and at times he could look to have a goal at goal for himself, you know. So a very impressive player, you know, been very impressed with him. And then the front 3, they started with Shalulile, Erasmus, and Thabiso Kutumela. So I was very impressed then with Thabiso Kutumela with regards to how he played. And I think his mobility brings a great deal of penetrative pressure whenever it comes to how they approach the game. Because when you have this team and they're very good at rotating the ball, sometimes you may lack a penetrative individual. Sometimes you need somebody who's penetrative in their run. And we saw that with Thabiso Kutumela against Orlando Pirates, where he went down vertical zone 5 and managed to beat two players, and he cut the ball back. Shalulile finished very well. So very impressed with Thabiso Kutumela. I think, it gives them a different dynamic when it comes to the starting lineup and this front three as well. You've got Serginho, who's got the intelligence and the guile, whereas Kutumela, he's got the work ethic, the speed, and the direct penetration as well, which is something very different, to a Serginho. So this bodes really well for this Mamelodi Sundowns side, because then it gives them a plethora of options whenever coming up against different opposition. And then Erasmus is another player who I think, yes, he hasn't started scoring as of yet, but when you look at his movement, you look at his ability to interpret the space and play in the half spaces and sometimes pop up in vertical zone 3, I think he's doing really well for the team in that regard, and very experienced campaigner as well. But Shalulile, man, he's the player on form. He's currently the best player within the Dstv Premiership, in my opinion, at this point in time, with regards to his performances, his consistency, and of course the numbers, and he's doing really well for this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So that is the 11 that they went with against Orlando Pirates. But going into this game, changes could be instituted. If Thapelo Morena is fit, he could always come back into the right wing back position. You could always go with the Serginho, if you want to change things up a bit. But I think this 11 did really well. The only player I would potentially look at is maybe a Thapelo Morena down this right-hand side, coming in for Grant Kekana. Otherwise, I think this is the lineup that they would go with. They've been doing really well, this Mamelodi Sundowns side, and we're now starting to see them hit their stride and come into their own, So very impressed then with how they've approached the games, and very impressed then with their tactical and technical acumen, and especially when it comes to how they nurture the ball, So in build-up phase, into consolidation phase, and then into the final third, I think we're starting to see that intertwined style of play, free-flowing passing football, and it's beautiful to see from a Mamelodi Sundowns perspective. And then when we have a look at Swallows, so the last time Swallows played in the Dstv Premiership, they played to a 0 draw against Cape Town City, and in goals they started with Virgil Fries. They had a back four of Viomere, Junaid Sait as the right-sided centre-half, they had Sibia as the left-sided centre-half, Langerman as the left back. So with regards to that, then I was quite happy to see Langerman in that game, and I think he had at moments of the game he had good displays, with regards to his decision making, and with regards to the experience and the authority that he brings to the Swallow side. So that is a player I would be looking to continue with in the left back position. If you look at Langerman and you look at Matlaba, personally I prefer Langerman, with his experience and with regards to how he reads the game. I think he's a lot more tactically disciplined, so he's not a player that's just going to bomb forward. He reads the game with regards to how the game opens up in vertical zone 1 on his side and in his channel, and then in the midfield they had Nyatama, Mokoena, and Matlo. This is the 3 that they've gone with, and this is the 3 that Brandon Truter instituted. This is the 3 that Coach Simo Dlala is continuing with within a 4-3-3. So the interesting thing then becomes that this 3 in midfield, in my opinion, you've got experience in that midfield. You've got the technical guile, and you've got very good players in the heart of midfield, no doubt about that. But if we have to be honest, from a qualitative perspective, when it comes to penetrating into the final third, I feel like they haven't really ticked that box. And in my opinion, I think we need to see a change in the heart of midfield. I think we need to see a Grant Magaman starting from the very beginning. I think you need to see a Given Tiberi coming back. I mean, those are players who could institute change in the heart of midfield, because I just feel that with Swallows, when it comes to the midfield perspective, I feel like at times it's a bit predictable and it's been a bit lethargic. So when you bring in that injection of young energy and that creativeness in a Tiberi and a Magaman in midfield, I think it makes a world of difference. And you could play them as 2 number 8s and have Musa Nyatama as a 6. So I think we need to see change within the heart of midfield for Swallows. And then when we have a look at the front three, they started with Solomons, Ndlovu started on the other side, and then they had Malinga start up front, which is very interesting actually, because there's a Mwape Musonda, So personally, I would go with the Mwape Musonda because he's, in my opinion, he is the better striker, and just freshen things up a bit, You've gone with the tried and tested, and you're not really getting results, Those positive displays and progressive performances aren't forthcoming, just like the results. So let's try something, let's tweak it a bit and try to get an injection of fresh ideas when it comes to the Swallow side, because like I mentioned, there's so many players that they could bring in from a midfield perspective. I've mentioned Magaman, I've mentioned Tibedi, and then when you look at it from a front three perspective, you got Makhalwa, you got Saleng, so there are many players that can come into this side and make a difference, in my opinion, It's just how things are instituted at the club. And also just to note, I just think that Mohamed would be a better partner to Junaid's side, as he is a left-footed either centre-back or left-back, but I think that he could do a very good job as a centre-half, and I think he'd be very comfortable in there, especially when you look at building up play, he'd open into sort of that half space, and at times when you really want to open it up, you're looking at them opening it wide like that, and because he is left-footed, then when he receives the ball, he's receiving it on his back foot, and he's got a lot more passing channels and angles open for him, and a lot quicker as well. He can always take it on the back foot. So from a build-up perspective and nurturing the ball, I think he could be better suited partnering him. I think he's also a very calm player who reads the game well, but he's not afraid to get stuck in. He will go out and engage play whenever he has to. So that's another player worth mentioning, So this Swallow side has a plethora of options that they could be looking at, especially when you look at the season and how it's going, At this period of the season, you want to see some consistency and momentum, but it's not forthcoming for this Swallow side. So it would be nice to see that change. But anyway, then let's move on right along to the extra time segment, where I sort of give you an overall scope of how I think this game will play out and who I think will be the key players going into this one. So with regards to this game then, look, Mamelodi Sundowns, I think they'll have the lion's share of the ball possession, and I think that Swallows will struggle in this game, and I think they'll struggle because firstly, when you look at the fact that there's Simo Dladla there, and he did mention himself that he's trying to institute a new philosophy and a new style. So because it's only his second game and he would have had only a handful of training sessions with the team, I think he struggles because then you're still trying to figure out the right combinations. When you're trying to figure out the right combinations coming up against a Mamelodi Sundowns that has just peaked with regards to the period of the season, then it's always going to be an uphill battle. And I think Mamelodi Sundowns will be a lot more versed when it comes to certain dynamics. So when you're looking at how they retain the ball, when you're looking at how they attack, how they look to penetrate that final third, I think they're a lot more assured in that regard because they know their team, they've hit the peak, and they more or less know which is their strongest 11. But Simo Dladla will be trying new things. So at times I think they will concede possession, and I see a high turnover from them. I don't see them holding on to the ball, as I think they've lacked that crisp, sharp passing, which they instituted last season. So I think it's going to be a very difficult game for Swallows, and I just don't see them. I just don't see them coming out on top in this game. And going into this game, I think a player who's going to be very important is Junaid Sait, how he goes about defending, and how he tries to marshal that back four, obviously with the experience of Uvuyamera. But how does Junaid Sait deal then with the overload whenever Mamelodi Sundowns do look to institute that central zone 3 overload? And sometimes when they end up overloading the half spaces as well, so whenever Mamelodi Sundowns get into into this phase of play, in the opposition half when they're on the offensive. Like, how do they manage this? How do they manage this situation? So Junaid's side and Sibiya going to be very important with regards to their communication. How do they shift those around them? Musa Nyatama as well. So when you're looking at these three defensive players, very important coming into this game. So they will be the key players then for Swallows. And how do they deal with that overload? Especially from a Mamelodi Sundowns perspective. And then when we have then a look at Mamelodi Sundowns, we're looking at three players, in my opinion. So we're looking at Jali, we're looking at Rivaldo Coetzee, and then we're looking at Shalulile. So the reason why I'm looking at Jali and Rivaldo Coetzee is how do they then go about controlling this game, especially in the heart of midfield, because of how Swallows tend to approach games, So they play with the midfield three. So, and Sundowns also have a midfield three, sometimes Zwane joining. So it does become a hybrid. At times it does look like a 4-2-4, but it's going to be very interesting then to see how does Jali and Rivaldo Coetzee go about controlling this game, and also how do they stamp their authority, especially against a very experienced pair of Nyatama and Mokoena, and then you've got a Matlaba in there. So very, very interesting encounter, as I think this will be a midfield battle. And then Shalulile, very fine goal scoring form. Whenever he does get those chances, can he put them away and put Mamelodi Sundowns into the lead early on? So I do think that Sundowns will get a chance early on. They have been scoring a lot more goals in the second half, but within this game, I just foresee them getting a chance early on. And I think that will put the advantage fully in Mamelodi Sundowns' favor. Not that it isn't already, but you do know that when you get that early goal, it really gives you that positivity and that momentum to press on. So Shalulile, very important when it comes to this. Also just extending his personal goal tally going into this one. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think Mamelodi Sundowns will walk away with the victory here. And I see them winning this game 3-0 because of how Swallows are still trying to figure things out. And in my opinion, they've just been struggling. And there's so many things lacking from a Swallows perspective. And Sundowns have just hit their peak with regards to the period that they find themselves in, as a club. So I think the game will be won by Mamelodi Sundowns. And I see this game ending as 3-0 to Mamelodi Sundowns. And I see Shalulile walking away with the man of the match award, and I foresee him extending his goal tally. So, ladies and gentlemen, do let me know, how do you feel at home with regards to Brandon Truter being placed on special leave? What do you make of that when it comes to South African football? Because the last time we saw that, it was older Rinky Rink at Cape Town City who was placed on special leave, and then he never returned. He got the sack. And what do you make of Simo Dladla trying new things with the Swallow side? What do you think should be instituted at Swallows for us to see a difference in Swallows, And what do you think the score will be? Who do you think the man of the match will be? And if there will be goals, in your own opinion, who do you think gets the goal? So thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.